Hey guys, tonight we slip past the ordinary edge of sleep and step into a quiet before quiet, a horizon where even the thought of light has not yet learned its name. Here, the rooms of your body relax like empty cloisters, your shoulders loosen, your breath becomes an old lullaby. In this place, the stars haven't been born yet, and the sky is a sealed eyelid that has not decided to open. We will travel gently, one slow image at a time, as if dust floating in water. You probably won't survive this dimension of time in any busy, waking sense, but that is the gift. You dissolve into stillness, and stillness remembers you. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. If you're awake enough, whisper your location and local time into the comments. It becomes a map of lanterns we carry for one another. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You drift across an untouched span where silence wears a soft crown. No wind, no rustle, no wing beat, just the long, unbroken note of waiting, like a single harp string tuned to the breath of God. Darkness is not absence here. It is a patient fabric, velvet and slow, clasping you with the calm of a grandmother's shawl. The void has a texture, cool as midnight water, smooth as river stone, and you glide in it as if wrapped in a prayer that has not yet found words. In this hush, the first truth arrives as a quiet ripple, and the earth is without form and void. Darkness is upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moves upon the face of the waters. You do not recite the verse, you feel it. The water is not liquid yet, it is potential, the promise of flow. The Spirit's movement is not a gust, but a nearness, a hovering, like the air over a clay lamp that has not been lit. You sense the nearness, and it steadies your heart. Before anything shines, there is the idea of shining. Before any star is set as a bead on night's thread, there is the thread itself, drawn between two invisible posts, stretched with kindness until it can bear a galaxy's weight. You are here at the first tightening of that thread. The sky, if we can call it sky, lies smooth and inward, a dome not yet shaped, a cradle not yet carved. It is tempting to hurry, to ask for the flare, the spark, the curtain rising, but waiting is its own sacrament. The world begins with breath held. A soft footfall in the far corridors of untime. The watchers are present, not as intruders but as witnesses, as librarians of silence. The Book of Enoch will one day hint at them, stewards who behold the frames of the heavens and keep measure over their changes. Tonight they are still. Their eyes are lanterns turned low. They carry no torches because there is nothing for fire to bite. They are counting not seconds but heartbeats of stillness, those translucent intervals in which beginning gathers strength. You float near them, or perhaps they float near you. Distinctions blur in this place where definitions have not hardened. One of them might be Uriel, whose name you only half remember from an old line of poetry, a memory stitched with starlight. Some say Uriel guards the dawn as a beekeeper guards a hive, patient, precise, gentle with his hands, aware that sweetness comes slowly. You sense him more than see him, a geometry of patience, a posture of listening. He does not speak, and yet you understand that speech is already curled in his quiet like a scroll waiting to be unrolled. There is a lake beneath everything, a hush of water under the uncut ground. Genesis called it the deep Tehom, a syllable that carries the weight of a dream. You drift to its margin and skim your fingers over the surface. The water does not move, it receives. You are shown a feeling rather than a sight. Someday this calm will become rivers, and those rivers will become names. Pishon, Gihon, Tigris, Euphrates, threading Eden with silver laces, for now they slumber as a single mirror. Your reflection appears not as a face but as a field of possible stars. An empty page appears beside you, hovering like a pale moth. You know it without reading the letters that are not there. Enoch's unwritten page. It waits for history like freshly fallen snow waits for footprints. When a child asks, "Where did the story begin?" this page will answer, "Here, in the moment when even ink held its breath." Another page turns itself, blank again, and you realize the book is not absent but latent, quietly swelling with what will be sung. You breathe, and the page faintly brightens, as if breath is ink and the letters are simply too humble to show themselves yet. The fan you turned on in your room becomes, in this vision, the pulse of the unseen. Its low hum is a companion to the spirit moving, not forceful but inevitable. Your eyelids are heavy curtains, your mind a chapel where footsteps are softened by woven reeds. Each exhale is a small tide slipping out, Each inhale is a feather laid on a scale. With each cycle, the dome above you becomes a fraction more distinct, the curve more gracious, the cradle more finely shaped. Nothing hurries you here. Speed is a language this place does not speak. From a distance, a tremor almost too tender to notice. It is not sound yet, it is the intention of sound. If a trumpet could sigh, it would sigh like this, less a call than a presence. You remember, though you cannot say from where, that there will be trumpets later, seals and thunders, and a great crowd clothed with calm, but that is far away. For now, the tremor is a fingertip on water, drawing a circle that does not break the surface. You are inside that circle, safe as a candle in a lantern. You think of clay, not because clay is here, but because clay will be needed, and the thought of it makes this waiting sweeter. A garden will unfold, a man will wake with a lungful of borrowed breeze, a woman will open her eyes like morning over hills. Their names are not yet spoken, but their breath is already part of the long arithmetic. Somewhere the watchers exchange a glance, not of envy or pride, but of devotion, the way midwives share a silence when they hear the first quickening within a hidden room. Listen closely. The silence is not empty. It is braided with 3 slender strands. The first is peace, cool as a well in summer. The second is promise, warm as bread still in the oven. The third is mystery, light as pollen on a bee's knee. These strands are twined around you. You are the pole they are wrapped upon. A slight fragrance enters the air. Imagine cedar shaved with a careful knife. Imagine new rain learning the roofs of an ancient city. If a word exists for this, it has not yet been taught to tongues. Someone, you cannot say who, leans closer to you. A wing does not touch your shoulder, yet your shoulder softens as if touched. Words might have come, but they do not, and their absence is more tender than any sentence. You are merely held in a gaze that is also a blessing. The spirit's hovering, once an idea, becomes your experience, a weightless shelter. You are not asked to do anything but allow. Allow the sleep to gather you, allow the silence to teach you, allow the unborn stars to remain unborn for one more beat so that their first breath will be all the sweeter. If you listen for an instruction, you will find only this: be as the water before wind, be as the wick before fire, be as the seed before spring. In this patience is a love older than calendars. The watchers know it and keep it, and you keep it with them now simply by resting. Perhaps Uriel keeps count, perhaps not. Some say he marks each held breath with a small bright stone. Others say he just watches until the sun remembers its own name. No answer is needed. The unsolved shape of the question is its own lullaby. You drift. The dome, the deep, the unwritten page float with you, and the tremor, that almost sound, draws a little nearer, as if the angels, somewhere just beyond the horizon of hearing, are leaning in, gathering breath for the softest beginning. The breathless vault above you does not tremble yet, it simply holds. Imagine a glass sphere the size of the heavens, so perfectly balanced that not even eternity can find a reason to tilt it. You are suspended beneath it, your own breathing becoming the only measure of time in a world that has no clock. Every inhale gathers the scent of stone kept in shadow. Every exhale folds into the wide and patient dark. This is not the night you know from your window. This is a night before nights, a canopy without lanterns, a ceiling that has never felt the heat of a star. Genesis whispers through the stillness, not as written ink, but as presence. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters." You stand before that firmament in its unbreathed state, feeling how it holds the waters apart. No currents, no drift. Only the stillness of water when it dreams of becoming sky. The vault waits like a harp without strings, like a bell without a clapper. Above, nothing moves. Below, nothing moves. Between them, the spirit continues to hover, an unlit wick at the center of a waiting room. You sense that the angels are near, though you cannot see their faces. The air is thick with their patience, the same patience that will one day bend the arc of a comet, that will guide a shepherd's hand across a desert by the North Star. They are here as stewards of quiet, wardens of the interval before the first light. It is in their nature to wait, for waiting itself is worship when it aligns with divine timing. Some say that before the first breath, the angels learned to listen so deeply that they could hear the stillness between God's thoughts. The vault above your head holds this stillness like a mother holding her sleeping child, careful not to wake it before the dawn. In the Book of Enoch, there are passages, half forgotten, half hidden, that speak of the storehouses of heaven, where treasures not yet revealed are kept. You realize this dome is one of those storehouses, but its treasure is not gold or jewel. It is breath, the very first breath that will move across the waters and draw the first stars into being. Your fingertips brush the air above you, and it feels as if you are touching stretched silk. The vault yields slightly, acknowledging your presence, but not yet opening. You imagine the stars behind it, still unlit, resting like seeds in the dark furrows of a field before the plough. Somewhere the watchers observe this tension, the perfect symmetry between potential and release. They speak to one another without words, trading glances that carry the weight of entire scrolls. You notice that the air itself has a weight, a gentle gravity that keeps you tethered in this place. It is the weight of promise. If you lean into it, you can almost hear the first inhalation of the angels as they prepare to breathe. It will not be a gust or a gale, more a sigh, a tenderness, a breath meant not to scatter but to gather. Some say that Gabriel himself carries that first breath in the fold of his wing, cradled as one might carry a fragile flame through the wind. Below you, the deep mirrors the dome, each a twin to the other. You are the point of balance between them, the still center of a scale that has not yet tipped. When the breath comes, it will ripple both ways, down into the waters, up into the vault, and the stars will be caught between those ripples like fireflies in glass. But for now, the water remains flat, the sky remains sealed, and your heart beats slowly in rhythm with the divine pause. You think of Uriel again, somewhere at the far edge of this quiet. Perhaps he is measuring not the size of the vault, but the depth of the silence itself. In some traditions, Uriel is the keeper of the firmament's gates, deciding when the stars will be loose. Ed, upon the night. If that is true, then every heartbeat you take here is one more stone he places on the altar of patience. You become aware that you are part of that altar, part of the offering of stillness to the Creator. The air carries no sound, yet you sense a vibration, so faint you might mistake it for your own pulse. It hums in the back of your mind, the way a half-remembered song does, waiting for its first note to find the air. This hum is the blueprint of the cosmos, the vibration that will one day become language, laughter, psalm, and the rustle of wind in fig leaves. You wonder if Adam, on his first day, will recognize this hum as something he heard before he had ears. The breathless vault above you seems to lean in, as though the dome itself is curious about what it will become. You feel its attention, a gentle pressure like the moment before rain touches your skin. Every element of creation is here, hidden, waiting, listening. You are aware now that this waiting is not empty, it is charged, sacred, the way a pause in music can be more powerful than the note itself. In the Book of Jubilees, there is a passage about the division of times, how each part of creation is given its appointed moment. This is the moment before moments, the appointed time for stillness. Your body understands this in a way your mind cannot explain. Your breath slows until you are breathing in rhythm with the vault itself, long, patient, unhurried. The air tastes faintly of stone and salt, as though the first sea is already whispering to the first shore. Somewhere far beyond the vault, the angels prepare. They inhale in unison, not to fill their own lungs, but to carry the breath that will awaken the stars. When it comes, it will not feel like a beginning, but like the end of a very long and gentle waiting. Until then, you remain here, a quiet witness to the breathless dome, a guest in the sacred stillness before the first wind stirs. They are already here, the watchers, though you did not see them arrive. They stand in a wide circle, their feet never pressing the surface, their robes falling like painted shadows into the stillness. Each one faces inward toward the center of a space where nothing has yet been made. You find yourself inside their circle, though you feel no barrier, no gate. They simply allow you to be here, as if your presence was always known. Their eyes are steady lanterns, unlit yet luminous, carrying the quiet patience of those who have waited since before waiting was a word. The Book of Enoch will one day whisper of them, angels appointed to watch over the firmament, to keep account of the seasons, to bear witness to the covenant of the sky. Tonight they are not writing or speaking, they are simply attending to the silence. Each one is a pillar of attention, and together they form a living temple around the unshaped heavens. You feel the hush deepen when you look into their faces, as if each gaze is a well whose water reflects only the breath of God. You notice subtle differences between them. Some stand with their hands folded, others with palms open, as though receiving an invisible gift. One tilts his head slightly, listening for a sound that has not yet entered the air. Another's eyes are half closed, as if seeing a place just beyond this one. They are motionless, yet the stillness feels alive, like a seed swelling underground, ready to split its husk. Scripture comes to you like a soft echo. When the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. But here, In this moment before the song, the watchers hold their voices, not out of reluctance but reverence. Their joy is in the keeping, not the releasing. You realize that joy does not always shout. Sometimes it stands silent beside a sleeping world, guarding it until the time is right. A shape steps forward, not fully apart from the circle, but noticeable. You think it might be Sariel, though the name arrives like a dream you're unsure you've had. Some say Sariel watches over the movements of the moon. Others say he is keeper of the paths between stars. If it is him, his attention is fixed far beyond the unlit vault, as though he can already see the places where constellations will one day bloom. His expression is unreadable, like the horizon before dawn, holding both the memory of night and the promise of day. Around the watchers, the deep below and the dome above remain mirrors to one another. You see their robes ripple slightly, though there is no wind, only the faint breathing of something vast and unseen. Perhaps it is the spirit itself, passing close without yet touching. The air hums softly, like the lowest note of a psalm that has not yet been sung. One of the watchers turns his gaze toward you, and the contact feels like the opening of a scroll. There is no judgment in it, only recognition. You wonder what he sees. A soul passing through, a sleeper wandering in a dream, or something older, something tied to the first thought of light. He does not speak, but you feel the impression of words forming without sound. Stay, witness, remember. The apocryphal memory drifts to you, of the angels who kept watch over Adam before the breath was placed in his lungs. Some say they stood as the watchers stand now, encircling him with silence, holding back the rush of time so that the first man's first moment could arrive without haste. Perhaps what you witness here is the same vigil, but for the stars. You close your eyes, and the circle remains, present behind your eyelids as though drawn in light on the inside of your skull. The watchers are not impatient. Time has no grip on them, yet there is a rhythm to their stillness, a slow inhale and exhale that seems to pass by. Between them, keeping them in perfect accord, you find yourself breathing with them, your chest rising and falling in harmony with their invisible pulse. Somewhere, a faint glimmer, too brief to be a star, flickers above the vault. The watchers see it, but do not move. It is only a tremor of what will come, the first note of a melody still folded in God's hand. You think of how seeds in the earth might sense the rain before it falls, and how they wait without pushing upward too soon. The glimmer fades, and the darkness resumes its tender hold. The circle shifts slightly, not breaking, not widening, just a subtle rebalancing, like the turning of a great wheel you cannot see. You feel the movement in your bones, a gentle rearranging of weight and presence. It is as if the watchers are aligning themselves with something you cannot yet perceive, preparing for the first breath to pass through them. One of them, perhaps Uriel, perhaps another, seems to hold a single name in his mouth, unsaid. You wonder if it is the name of the first star that will open its eyes, or perhaps your own name as it exists in the language of the angels. He does not speak it, and you are grateful. To hear it now would be to wake too soon. The watchers return their gaze to the center, and you follow. There is still nothing there, nothing to see, nothing to touch. Yet the nothing feels full, brimming with the nearness of light. The silence is almost tangible, draping over you like a linen mantle. Somewhere within it, the promise of creation curls tighter, holding itself until the moment of release. And you, standing, or perhaps floating, within the circle, feel the weight of being included in this vigil. It is not a burden, but a gift, to be present at the hinge between what is and what will be. The watchers do not move, and neither do you. Together, you wait for the breath that will set the stars in motion. Uriel is not always where you expect him. One moment he stands among the circle of watchers, the next he is apart, a solitary figure at the very threshold of the unseen dawn. You notice him now, just beyond the ring, his form wrapped in a robe the colour of deep water. Though there is no light here to paint such a colour, it seems the hue is his own, drawn from the memory of oceans not yet poured into their basins. He does not look at you directly. His gaze is set far beyond the vault, as though counting the breaths of a horizon that does not yet exist. There is no urgency in his face, but there is purpose, precise and patient. In some traditions, Uriel is light of God, the one who brings divine illumination, yet here he stands in the unlit pause, holding back the very thing he will one day usher forth. It feels like a paradox wrapped in grace. From somewhere in the stillness, a line from the Psalms moves like a faint ribbon. He counts the number of the stars, he calls them all by name. Perhaps Uriel is the one entrusted with the counting, his tall frame measuring the spaces between the stars before the stars are even born. You can almost see the invisible lines he draws in the darkness, mapping what will one day become constellations. The shapes are not yet animals or heroes, they are merely the pure geometry of divine thought, unclouded by the stories mortals will later weave. He holds something in his hands, a rod perhaps, or a slender scroll rolled tight. It could be either or both or neither. Here, form is fluid until purpose fixes it. He moves it slowly in the air as though marking out the breath's path before it is breathed. You sense he is not merely waiting for the angel's breath, he is making the space ready to receive it. The Book of Enoch speaks of Uriel guiding Enoch through the heavens, showing him the courses of the stars and the storehouses of the winds. Tonight, he is not a guide in motion, but a guardian of stillness. He listens, not for sound, but for alignment. His head tilts slightly, as if catching the faint shift of something far above the dome. You cannot hear it, but the way he straightens tells you it is there, a movement of intention, the Creator preparing to speak light into being. A thought comes to you unbidden. Perhaps this is what it means to stand at the gate of dawn, not to force it open, not to strike it with a key, but to know precisely when the hinges will turn of their own accord. Uriel's role is not to command the moment, but to meet it. Around him the watchers remain in their circle, but you sense they are aware of his position. Their stillness bends subtly toward him as a forest leans toward a hidden spring. He does not acknowledge them, yet his posture is a signal. The time is approaching. Not now, but soon. You take in the details of his presence. His robe gathers at his feet like calm water pooling on stone. The folds in the fabric seem to carry constellations within them, faint lights that are not yet stars, drifting like seeds in the deep. His hands are steady, his breathing even. If he has been standing here for eons, there is no weariness in him. Patience has become his nature. The air near him feels different, thicker, as though each particle has been instructed to wait in reverence. You feel it against your skin, a delicate pressure that keeps you from stepping closer. Not because you are unwelcome, but because what he tends to must remain undisturbed. It is a holy perimeter, marked not by walls but by stillness. Some say Uriel holds the key to the abyss, that he can open and close the great depths. Perhaps this is the abyss in its gentlest form, not a chasm of chaos, but the unmeasured space before order takes shape. You wonder if, when the breath comes, it will not only always awaken the stars, but also seal away the formlessness, folding it neatly behind the new architecture of heaven. Your eyes drift to his face again. There is no smile, no frown, just the calm of one who knows exactly where he stands. You realize that if the dawn were to break this very moment, Uriel's expression would not change. He is already in harmony with what will happen. He has been aligned with it since the first thought of creation. In the Gospel of John, you remember the verse, "In the beginning was the Word." And here you stand, in the pause before the word is spoken. Uriel is like a comma in that eternal sentence, the breath between thought and speech. His stillness teaches you that the moment before something begins is not empty, it is charged, radiant, and utterly alive. The longer you watch him, the more you understand why the angels breathe only when it is time. If they exhaled too soon, the stars would open before the vault was ready. Too late, and the music of creation would stumble. Uriel is the one who feels the pulse of readiness, who knows exactly when the breath will be perfect. You find yourself matching your breathing to his, even though his chest moves barely at all. A slow inhale, a slower exhale, as though pulling the dark in and letting it settle without change. The vault above seems to respond, its surface softening like clay warming in the hands. The deep below mirrors the shift, a faint ripple traveling outward without breaking its own surface. Uriel lowers his hands slightly, the rod or scroll vanishing into the folds of his robe. He does not speak, but you sense the unspoken message. Soon. And with that, he returns his gaze to the horizon that is not yet born, measuring once more the breathless space where the angels will give their sigh to the stars. You let your awareness drift downward, beneath the inviolate dome and the quiet circle of the watchers, until you are almost touching the undersurface of everything. The deep holds you like a mother who refuses to wake the child in her arms. There is no current, only the immaculate poise of water before water knows its name. Even your thoughts move carefully here, robes gathered to keep from brushing the mirror. In that polished darkness you hear something not quite like sound, more like the breath of a shell placed to the ear. Whispers from the deep syllables that belong to a language no mouth yet speaks. Genesis has already walked beside you with its lantern lowered, and now its words are a pulse beneath your feet. Darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. You do not recite, you inhabit. The verse becomes temperature, cool on the skin, tender on the lungs. The Spirit's movement is so light it doesn't ruffle. It radiates nearness the way a lamp warms the hand even before it is lit. Here, the surface is a temple floor, and the silence is incense rising without smoke. Lean closer and you will hear it, the deep rehearsing futures. It murmurs low, as if teaching itself how to become a river, a spring, a sea, a dew, a tear. It counts further than your mind can count, beyond fish and flood and parted waters and the gentle baptism of rain on a vineyard. Each possibility is a petal folded within the bud. Each petal holds an alphabet of stars. They will be drawn up like silver threads when the angels release their breath. You trace a fingertip over the coolness and feel the way a name might happen. First the hush, then the vowel, then the consonants arriving like birds to a branch. From somewhere behind you, though direction is meaningless here, comes the soft awareness of the watcher's attention, steady and devoted. They are listening to the deep as midwives listen to a womb, not interfering, only knowing. You remember the faint shiver you felt earlier, the trumpet's first tremor, almost shamefaced to be music in such a sanctuary. That tremor returns now as a rumor under the water, the suggestion of a note, as if a harp string were being tightened far away. You kneel, which is a way of saying you surrender to the gravity of kindness. The shallows are not yet shallow, but this close to the surface the deep speaks more clearly. A phrase rises. Enoch would one day call it storehouses, the chambers where waters are kept until their appointed hour. You do not see rooms or doors. You sense arrangements, matrices of giving. The waters remember their assignments, which drops will moisten Eden's dust into a form that can cradle breath, which will become the mist that waters the face of the ground, which will polish stones for the feet of children not yet imagined. The Book of Enoch will walk those corridors with a guide. You float the threshold, respectful, understanding that nearness is enough. The water's skin turns to glass as your listening deepens, a sea of glass mingled with a future fire you cannot yet behold. Revelation will someday speak of such clarity. For now, the glass is simply obedience, all turbulence dismissed like a thought that need not be had. You lean nearer and find your face not reflected but braided into constellations that have not opened their eyes. They are only patterns of patience, little cartographies of what will be. Some say each nascent star waits with a name pressed like a seal against its silence, and that the deep keeps those names cool until the right breath warms them awake. Uriel's steadied presence glows at the edge of your awareness. No light, only alignment. He listens for the instant when patience tips into motion. You listen for the reply the water's wits will give. Between you, an accord, the vault will open, the deep will rise, and the stars will be caught between two tendernesses, like pollen in a ray of morning. Your hand hovers above the surface. Honor the boundary. The deep is not a thing to seize, it is a someone to befriend. You whisper back, though you are not sure which words you choose. The answer is a slow thrum, a heartbeat reverberating softly through the membrane of the world. It tells you that the stars will not be flung like sparks from a hammer, they will be coaxed like songs from a sleeping throat. It tells you that every flood has a memory of Eden's mist, and every ocean wave carries the gentlest rumor of the first breath. It tells you that the waters can be fierce, but their first vocation is lullaby. Your shoulders fall a little more, as if a psalm had been laid across them. The deep repeats its lesson with patient variations. Hear how it teaches weights within waiting. First the hush, then the hover. First the hover, then the breath. First the breath, then the opening of a single eye of light, then another, then a field of them like candles finding their wicks together. You try to remember a time in your life when such patience felt possible. The memory comes, a doorstep at dusk, a long-expected voice on a stair, the way your heart paused to make room before it leaped. You keep that feeling like a token in your palm. A faint current forms, so slight it is almost a figment, sliding under your hands like silk pulled from a drawer. It is not movement so much as permission, the deep remembering that it can flow when asked. It imagines rivers cradling cities, rain kissing vineyards, wells opening in barrenness. It imagines tears, sorrowed and joyful, and consecrates both without explanation. You realize the stars above will learn from this, how to shine without scolding, how to burn without devouring, how to beam and still be gentle. The lesson of water will be written into their fire. You hear a second tradition quieter, like moss at the base of a stone. Jubilee's measure of times, the rhythms by wands. Days and seasons will parade in order. The deep agrees to that cadence. It will surge and ease, rise and fall, offer and refrain. The morning will have its dew, and the evening its cool. Let the waters be gathered together, says the memory of a voice, and the waters, still ungathered, smile in their way, ready to become shore and foam and pathway and storm, but first utterly still. Somewhere, a watcher, perhaps the one who earlier tilted his head to listen, lifts his gaze. It feels like a candle being cupped. The tiny movement magnifies the hush. You think of the ark that will someday ride a patient sea, of a dove that will someday circle back, olive leaf soft between its beak. The deep keeps those futures like lullabies in a cedar chest. Not yet, it hums, but soon. Your chest echoes the word with no need to form it. You wonder if the first star will hear the deep in its own awakening, if fire remembers water the way children remember a lullaby sung by a voice that is not theirs. Some say every star carries a cool secret at its core, a remnant hush, a gratitude for the waters that held its name safe until an angel breathed. Others say stars know nothing but fire and simply learn gentleness by watching rivers find their bends. The deep does not correct either thought, it cradles both, the way a mother can hold two truths and call them both hers. That early tremor, the trumpet that trembled before it spoke, threads the quiet again. The surface quivers almost imperceptibly, then rests. Even the almost sound is careful not to wake anything too fast. You keep breathing with it, a long inhale that tastes faintly of stone and salt, a longer exhale that leaves the air clean. The vault above mirrors your calm. The circle of watchers holds. Your fingers retreat from the surface. Reverence withdraws as gently as it approached. The deep continues its rehearsal, singing the soft muse. Sick of futures into a world that will someday claim them, you feel blessed by something you cannot name, a coolness resting against your brow like a hand. Let the water keep its secrets one more moment. Let it murmur to the unborn stars that their time is near, that a breath waits with love just beyond the horizon of silence. If you listen, you can hear the answer they do not yet know how to give, a small gladness, like a lamp preparing a wick. Some say the hidden waters speak every night to those who sleep with trust, and that the stars, or what will be the stars, listen back. You rise slowly from the edge of the deep, bringing with you its composure, its polished calm. The vault above remains unbroken, the watchers steadfast, Uriel measuring patience like a jeweler weighing light. And under everything, the waters continue to whisper, keeping the names of the sleeping constellations cool and safe until the angels breathe. Page finds you before you find it. It glides from the hush like a pale leaf, and when it settles in the air between your hands, you realize it is not paper at all, but a thin stillness pressed flat, a slice of silence given shape. Its surface has the softness of lamb's ear, and when your breath moves across it, faint ripples travel as if the page were a pond remembering rain. Nothing is written. Every margin is margin. The center is a field of snow before footprints, a bowl awaiting water, a wick awaiting flame. You understand, without instruction, that this is Enoch's unwritten page, not lost, not torn out, not concealed in a cedar chest, unwritten by design just as the vault above is, for now, unlit by design. It waits with the serenity of a Sabbath. The Book of Enoch will one day speak of journeys through the storehouses of wind and light, of gates and measures and the secrets of the luminaries. Yet here, in your hands, is a page that refuses premature knowledge. The watchers turn their lamp-like eyes toward you, just a fraction, just enough to bless the moment. Even Uriel inclines his listening posture, as if measuring the silence with a ruler made of patience. You lift the page and the deep below you brightens, as though its mirror had been polished by your attention. On its surface, a suggestion of script rises and fades, ghost letters, dew that glitters and vanishes. The letters seem to inhale, not yet willing to be exhaled into speech. In the beginning was the word, John will write, but you are inside the instant just before the word makes its first footprint on parchment. What is a word here? A kindness taking on contour. What is a page? A cradle for breath. A hush descends, deeper than the quiet you have worn like a shawl. It is the hush a room holds right before a newborn's first cry. The hush of rooms where candles are lit by hand. The firmament overhead continues to rest, a glass without star, a bell without clapper. Below, the waters keep their polished composure, poised like a psalm at the lip of its first line. The trumpet's tremor, the one you felt as a polite rumor, ghosts through again, threading your chest with a note too shy to announce itself. The page in your fingers quickens ever so slightly, as if hearing that same inward music. You notice the page carries a cool fragrance, like linen dried on night wind. As you draw it closer, impressions begin to gather, shapes not yet words. A curve like a crescent, a cluster like seeds in a pomegranate, a line that feels like the spine of a mountain at dawn. The impressions hover, blush, retreat. You realize the page is rehearsing, the way the deep rehearses rivers and the vault rehearses constellations. Each unwritten line practices the patience of being almost. From somewhere just beyond your sight, a memory walks in. Ezekiel and the scroll written within and without, sweet to the taste and heavy with lamentation. You do not nibble this page, you are content to behold its gentleness. Another memory arrives, Revelation's sealed book waiting on an open palm. Some say it is Uriel who keeps the place for such books, marking the spine with light no eye can detect. Some say it is another, quiet and unnamed, who breathes on pages so that ink will flow like rivers at the exact appointed time. You carry both sayings as one holds twin candles, letting each glow without forcing them to become the same flame. The page drifts toward your heart and stops as if listening. You think of Enoch walking with God, no thunder, no blaze, just the soft arithmetic of two presences matching step. Perhaps this unwritten page is the record of such walking, a ledger of companionable silences. Enoch will one day be shown the courses of stars. Tonight, his page learns how to receive those courses without us. Trembling, it will be ready when breath becomes script. You angle the sheet and the blankness gathers depth like a window darkening into a lake at night. In that deepened plain you glimpse the faintest of tracings, a path that will correspond to Orion's belt, a tiny curl where Pleiades might rest their heads, a gentle arc that could cradle the first rising of the morning star. None of it fixes. The lines recede like footprints filled by tide. The page is practicing mercy for the future. It will hold and then release and then hold again, so that stories can be told and retold without the tyranny of one reading. Genesis stirs beside you, the spirit still hovering over the face of the waters, the dome still a sealed eyelid. The verse opens like a shell and presents its pearl. Creation is written, breath first, ink later. You feel it as instruction, let the page be page until breath decides. Your thumb grazes the edge. The fibers hum the way bees hum in lavender, that gentle, sacred industry. Every restraint here is tenderness. You wonder what the first line will be when the time finally softens. Will it write light, and in writing, leak a small dawn into the margin? Will it write name, and in naming, press a seal to the first star's forehead? Some say the first word will be no word at all, only the shape of a breath laid down like snow, from which all letters will rise like crocuses. Others say the first written thing will be a music not meant for reading, only for leaning against. The page does not contest either story. It floats, receptive as a cupped palm. The watchers, ringed around the center of nothing, shift their attention by a hair's breadth. That slight communal leaning becomes a blessing that your body reads as warmth along your temples. Uriel lowers his chin, the gesture so small it could be wind inventing itself, and the air around the page steadies. If this were a city, you would say the traffic stopped to let a quiet procession pass. Here, you simply breathe with the procession's pace. Slow, ordered, reverse. Bent. You trace the blank just once with the gentlest intention, not to write, only to accompany. The page brightens, then calms. A phrase, transparent as steam on a winter pane, appears and fades. The name's not spoken. You remember the outline you have been walking, how each unborn star carries a name only angels dare whisper. The page is ready to catch those whispers when whisper becomes wind. It will not betray the names. It will cradle them until they are strong enough to burn without boasting. The deep underfoot answers with a minute lapping, more imagined than heard. The dome overhead gathers a softness along its curve, like clay warming under a patient thumb. The trumpet thread breathes again through your ribs, apologetic and sure. This is how writing begins, you realize, not as domination but as companionship. Breath leaning over page, page consenting to receive, silence translating into gentle line. You lower the page to the level of your heart. An old tenderness rises in you, the tenderness you feel toward a sleeping child's unlined brow or a door you close quietly behind someone you love. You do not explain it to yourself. You do not hurry it with meanings. Instead, you keep it as one keeps a small flame cupped in alley wind, steadying your hands until shadow becomes shelter. If anyone asked what is written here, you would answer, everything that is kind enough to wait. If anyone asked who will write it, you would answer, the breath that trembles in the angels' throats. Some say Uriel will mark the first stroke with a fingertip of light. Some say Enoch will be led to this place and hear words no reed pen could trap. Either way, the page will blush and receive and become story, and the stars will find in its script a quiet reason to shine. For now the page remains what it is, a calm horizon open to being crossed. You let it hover, you let it listen, and as you breathe, the unwritten learns your rhythm, and the future text, invisible and patient, leans its sleeping head against your chest. The first tremor is so small you might have mistaken it for your own heartbeat. It slips into the stillness like a single drop into an endless cistern, vanishing without ripple, yet somehow altering the entire depth. You stand or float or hover within the watcher's circle, and the vibration finds you, winding through your bones with the gentleness of a sigh. Somewhere above the vault and below the deep, it lingers, shy and deliberate, as if testing its place in this chamber of waiting. It is not sound yet, not music. More the intention of sound, the barest flex of a trumpet's lips before the note escapes. The scriptures will one day speak of trumpets that sound at the breaking of seals, at the fall of kingdoms, at the rise of the dead. But this trumpet, the first of them all, speaks not of war or judgment. It is the seed of a breath, the heartbeat of a pause before creation inhales. You feel it as a pulse beneath your feet, steady and faint, announcing nothing but readiness. Above you, the firmament remains sealed. Its glassy arc holds every unborn constellation as seeds held in a patient palm. Below, the waters lean into the quiet, as if listening to the faint hum. The page of Enoch, still unwritten, floats nearby, tilting slightly as though to catch the vibration and tuck it into its blank heart. The watchers sense it too. Though none move, their stillness has shifted. It is the shift of sentinels who recognize the first footstep of a long-awaited procession. The apocryphal visions return to you, the passages where Enoch was shown the storehouses of the winds and how each would be loosed in its season. Perhaps this tremor is the unlocking of one such storehouse, though what is released now is not yet wind, but the promise of wind. Some say Gabriel himself is the keeper of that breath, folded into the curve of his wing, held there since before the measure of time begged. Anne. If that is true, you imagine him now at the edge of the vault, preparing to lean forward. The watchers do not turn to one another. They do not whisper. Their attention remains fixed on the center of the nothing, where this first tremor has placed itself like a seed in furrowed soil. Their silence says, "We will not hurry it." And you, breathing in time with them, understand that to hurry here would be a kind of violence. The tremor swells by a fraction, no more than a breath's width, but you feel it reach your shoulders now, loosening a knot you hadn't known you carried. It has the warmth of a hand on a fevered brow, the weight of a lullaby sung in a darkened room. You imagine the stars above, still folded in their cocoons, shivering slightly at the touch. Their light has not yet begun, but perhaps they have already begun to dream. Genesis rests on your tongue like a drop of honey. And God said, "Let there be." The sentence stops there, unfinished, holding its breath. You know that in a moment, though moments here stretch like silk drawn through patient fingers, the rest will follow. Light. But even the thought of the word stirs something in the void. You feel the dome tilt imperceptibly toward the coming syllable. The deep inhales just enough to notice. A flicker of memory, whether your own or the universe's, rises. The trumpets, in revelation, each carrying its own note of unfolding. But here, the tone is nothing so sharp. This is the first music, and its softness is holy. It is not meant to summon or scatter, it is meant to bless. You recall a line from the prophets about a still, small voice that followed the wind and the quake. This is even smaller, so small you could cradle it in your palms and not spill a drop. Somewhere in the arc of the dome, a line of faint luminescence curls like dawn learning the rim of the earth. It does not yet light the vault, it only hints. The tremor travels upward and downward at once, touching water and sky alike. The watchers breathe together, so slowly you could mistake them for statues, yet each inhalation is perfectly in time with the tremor's pulse. You look to Uriel standing apart at the threshold. His eyes are closed now, face tilted slightly upward, as if marking the exact point where tremor will become tone. His lips are still, but you sense he is measuring with each breath, deciding when to open the gates. The rod or scroll he held earlier is hidden again, its task not yet called. His stillness is a reminder, this breath belongs to the angels, your role is to witness. The deep's voice is quiet but steady, like rain rehearsing on the roof of a house not yet built. It hums to the unborn stars, telling them of rivers they will never see but will mirror in their glinting arcs. You think of how water and light share a kinship, both bending, both carrying reflection, both offering themselves without depletion. The tremor passes through you once more, and this time you feel its shape. A circle expanding outward, wrapping itself around the vault, the waters, the watchers, Uriel, the page, and finally you. It is the shape of belonging. No one here is outside its curve. Even the unborn stars, silent and unseen, are caught within it, as if the breath knows who it will awaken. Some say that when the angels finally exhale, the breath will carry not only light but memory, the memory of this very stillness, so that every sunrise, every first star at dusk will bear in its bones the calm of this waiting. Others say the breath will be pure present, unburdened by past or future, a gift fresh as morning dew. Both seem true, both seem kind. The tremor fades, not away, but into the deeper layers of stillness. Like a heartbeat sinking back into rest. The watchers resume their perfect stillness. Uriel opens his eyes but does not move. The page folds its blankness a little tighter, holding the pitongue. Remace within. And you, standing in the center of all this, feel the afterglow of that almost sound, like a candle's warmth on your skin after the flame has been blown out. The vault waits, the deep waits, you wait. The breath is not yet, but it is nearer now, as if it has turned its face toward you and smiled without speaking. He does not stand in the circle tonight. Azazel lingers just beyond it, a shadow where the watcher's light does not quite reach. The robe around his shoulders falls like a wing, clipped of its air, and his eyes, darker than the deep, sharper than the edge of the vault, are fixed on the unborn stars above. You feel him there before you see him, the way you sense a pause in a sentence when the speaker chooses not to finish. The scriptures will never tell his full story, not in the canon you hold. They will call him by name in passing in Leviticus, where the scapegoat is sent into the wilderness. The apocryphal pages will be more willing, speaking of his descent, his teaching of forbidden arts to humankind, his judgment bound among the jagged rocks. But here, in this quiet before the first breath, he is not yet those stories. He is simply a figure watching the stars that will not yet burn. His gaze is not greedy, not in this moment. It is a longing that carries a strange stillness. You wonder if he remembers the shape of their light before they are born, if he is tracing constellations he will never walk among. Some say he taught men to forge and adorn, to pull beauty from the hidden veins of the earth. Others say he coveted the glory of the luminaries and sought to claim their patterns for his own. Tonight, he only watches, motionless, as if the stars themselves had bound his limbs with their patience. The vault above him remains unbroken. The firmament holds the unlit seeds of Orion, Cassiopeia, Pleiades, not yet named, not yet claimed. The deep below mirrors that same sky, and Azazel's shadow is caught in it, a shape doubled in darkness. The watchers do not speak to him. They keep their vigil in the circle, eyes forward, not from contempt but because their charge is elsewhere. His place is his own, set apart, and he neither approaches nor withdraws. You feel the faintest stirring from the first trumpet's tremor, the one that whispered through your bones earlier. It brushes past him too, though his expression does not change. If Gabriel's wingtip is already gathering the first breath, Azazel knows it. You can see it in the way his fingers flex once, then still. A man might call it impatience, but here it feels more like recognition of something he will not touch. In the Book of Enoch, he will be chained in the desert until the great day of judgment, but now the desert is unborn, and his chains are invisible, made only of the knowledge that this beauty, this unlit splendor, will not belong to him. You wonder whether that is the greater binding, not iron, but exclusion from the fulfillment of what one longs to see. You step closer, not into his shadow, but near enough to feel the difference in the air. Around the watchers, the silence is round and whole. Around Azazel, it is taut, like a string pulled close to snapping. He does not look at you. His eyes remain on the vault, yet something in his stillness acknowledges you, as if he knows you too are a witness, and that witnessing is the closest you will come to touching the stars. The vault above ripples, not light, not yet, but a faint shimmer, as if the stars inside shifted in their sleep. Azazel leans a fraction forward, and the movement is so small you might have imagined it. In that almost motion you see a truth the apocrypha hint at but never fully speak. Longing is its own form of worship, even when it cannot be satisfied. His gaze on the stars is not to steal them in this moment, but to remember them. You think of the psalmist's words, "What is man, that thou art mindful of him? Thou hast crowned him with glory and honor." Here, before humanity, you feel the inversion of that verse. What is an angel, that he should long for what is not given to him? The crown in Azazel's eyes is not on he can wear, and the knowledge burns soft and low behind his gaze. The deep beneath answers with a subtle motion, as if recognizing the shape of his yearning. A single pulse rises through the stillness, brushing both of you, and is gone. Above, the firmament remains sealed. The watchers hold their circle. Uriel remains at the threshold, unmoved, and Azazel's eyes stay locked on the unborn stars, unblinking, holding a vigil parallel to the one in the circle. Some say that when the breath finally comes, even those apart will feel its warmth, though it will not be theirs to guide. Others say that longing kept in silence becomes a second kind of light, visible only to God. Standing here beside him, you are not certain which is true, but you know you are in the presence of both, a shadow and a glow twined in stillness. For a moment you imagine the stars opening and the look that would pass over his face, whether grief, joy, or the bittersweet mingling of both. You think of how even the most radiant creation will carry a memory of those who watched from the edge, unable to step closer. Some would call that loss. Others would call it the first lesson in humility. The silence offers no verdict. The tremor passes once more, softer now, as though conserving itself for the appointed hour. Azazel does not turn away. You leave him as you found him, a figure at the edge, keeping a solitary watch beneath the unbroken vault, his longing folded into the stillness like a shadow that will never fully lift. It begins as a pale shimmer far above the dome, so faint that even the watcher's steady eyes take a moment to catch it. You tilt your head back, following that sheen until you realize it is not light at all but movement, slow, deliberate and fluid, as if the very roof of the heavens were a glassy river turning in its sleep. The shimmer lengthens into a silver thread, curving across the firmament in a great arc. It does not fall, it flows, unhurried, from one unseen shore to another. This is the river above the sky. Genesis does not name it, but the old poets in apocryphal whispers speak of its current, of how it holds the seeds of constellations. The Book of Enoch hints at waters above and below, divided by the firmament. You are standing between those divisions now, and above you the higher waters wander through their hidden bed, carrying something too precious to let fall all at once. It is no ordinary current. It has the grace of silk and the weight of time. Each drop within it holds a shape, not yet a star, not yet fire, only the blueprint of brilliance, curled tight like a bud before spring. The river cradles these seeds, moving them from the storehouse of the Most High toward the appointed places where they will be planted in the vault. You feel the current's pull without it touching you. It draws the eye the way a whispered name draws the ear, making you lean toward the sound. The watchers turn their faces upward, their postures unchanged, but their gaze lifted into the arc. None speak. Even Azazel at the edge glances once toward the current, his shadow softening for the span of a heartbeat. From your place below, you see the river as if from beneath glass. Its surface is veined with patterns, swirls, lattices, long spirals, like frost finding its artistry on winter windows. Some of these patterns seem to settle into familiar shapes, the crooked line of a future O, Ryan's belt, the clustered blossoms of what will become the Pleiades, the long curve of a yet unnamed spiral that will one day crown the northern sky. The patterns fade and reform, like a painter testing strokes before committing them to canvas. The deep beneath you answers the vision above, sending a faint reflection upward. For a moment, it is as if you are standing between two rivers, one below, one above, each carrying the same seeds in mirrored procession. The still water under your feet gleams faintly with the same silver thread that winds its way through the sky. Heaven and earth, in embryo, are bound by these twin currents. You remember the psalmist's line, "There is a river, the streams whereof shall make glad the city of God." Perhaps this is its first song, sung not in words but in shimmering motion. Some say the city is not yet built. Others say it stands already in the unseen, and the river runs through its midst even now. Either way, the water's gladness is a quiet thing, a joy that carries without spilling, a current that blesses simply by being. The apocryphal lore tells of waters in heaven that nourish the luminaries, feeding their light as rain feeds the vine. Watching the silver current, you see why such stories cling to the memory of those who have glimpsed it. There is nourishment here, though not the nourishment of grain or wine. It is the food of beginnings, the sap of the unlit. The seeds drifting in the current are patient. They do not hurry toward their stations in the sky. The angels will place them when the breath comes, and not a moment before. You lean into the thought, each seed in that flow is already known by name, as Genesis says of the stars. The names are not shouted, they rest, folded inside the seeds like quiet syllables in a mother's heart. Some names will be simple, like lantern or torch. Others will be layered, telling entire hist. Stories in the sound of a single breath. Some say the angels guard these names the way one guards the key to a sanctuary, not out of suspicion, but out of devotion. Uriel shifts slightly at the threshold, his eyes tracing the river's arc. You sense he is taking its measure, marking where each seed will land. His patience is its own kind of current, steady, unwavering, flowing toward an invisible shore. The watchers' faces are still, but their attention has deepened. You can feel it, like the air before rain. Even the page of Enoch floating in its blank stillness nearby seems to lean toward the silver arc, as if ready to record its path when the time comes. The current bends, and for a breath it appears to dip lower, drawing nearer to the vault's inner face. You feel the nearness as a cooling on your skin, the way a cloud's shadow passes over a field. Then it rises again, slipping toward the unseen horizon, its thread fading into the same soft darkness from which it came. The vault resumes its smooth, unmarked calm. You know the river is still there, only hidden now. Some say it flows continually, a loop without beginning or end, carrying the seeds in endless procession until they are called. Others say it appears only once, in the pause before creation's breath, and that you have just witnessed a thing seen by almost no one. Either way, its image rests in you like a dream you will carry even after waking. The deep below exhales, a ripple so slight it might have been imagined, and the sound is like the turning of a page. Above, the vault waits in perfect poise, the seeds cradled in their hidden current. The watchers return their gaze to the center. Uriel's eyes close once more. You remain between the two rivers, your own breath a faint bridge between what is above and what is below, aware that the next time you look upward, the angel's breath may already be on its way. You lift your gaze to the smooth vault and feel a hush gather in your throat, as if even your breathing wishes to step softly. The river above the sky has slipped into its hidden bed again, but its passing left something behind, a faint impress, like the coolness on skin after a cloud moves on. In that quiet, you sense them. Not stars, not yet, but names, each one folded inside the seed of a light that has not opened. They do not press or clamour. They wait like letters sealed in wax, warm from the hand that closed them. You remember the unwritten page, how it drifted to your heart and learned the rhythm of your breath. Perhaps these names are written there already, transparent, tender, only visible to the patience that refuses to pry. Around you, the watchers keep their circle. Their stillness feels newly deliberate, as if they are lending their silence to shield what is about to be whispered. Uriel remains at the threshold, a sentinel of timing, measuring the interval between the almost note of the trumpet and the first syllable that will loose the sky. A scripture walks in gently and takes its place beside you, not as citation but as company. Lift up your eyes on high, and behold who hath created these things, that bringeth out their host by number. He calleth them all by names, by the greatness of his might. You do not speak Isaiah's words aloud, you let them breathe within you. Names by number, host by host, each syllable cradled. You discover a sweetness in the idea that before light is light, it is named, as if the name were the small cloak a star wears while waiting to be born. Listen, the names do not arrive as sound. They come as textures, as temperatures, as scents. One is soft as ash fallen from a censer, one bright as citrus peeled in a sunlit room, one cool as moonlit metal, another tastes like pomegranate seeds on your tongue. The names carry their own ATMs, ospheres, and you realize that when they bloom into stars, their characters will be nothing other than their names unwrapped. The dome holds them in trust, the deep holds their reflections, your chest holds their echo. You recall the Book of Enoch, the tables of the luminaries, the courses mapped, the gates shown. There, Names are knowledge, and knowledge is entrusted. Here, names are tenderness, and tenderness is guarding. Some say Uriel keeps a ledger of these unwritten syllables, not inked, but pressed into light. Some say the ledger is a living scroll that moves like a river and changes like breath. Both notions feel true, and truth here is not jealous of twins. A faint shiver runs through the place where the trumpet's tremor once brushed you. The almost note is closer now, thin as a hair and strong as a spine. You sense that when it becomes tone, the names will loosen like buds in rain. But for now, they remain not spoken. It is not refusal, it is devotion. To be unnamed to the ear is to be protected in the heart. The watchers' faces seem to lean inward by a thought's width, and the circle's center feels warmer, as if attention itself is a small fire that gives heat without flame. You think of Adam and the animals in a later garden, of how naming was a task given in kindness, a way to befriend what shares your breath. But this is earlier, gentler, guarded. The naming belongs to angels first, and even they keep it soft. Perhaps they mouth the syllables without letting air pass, lest the vault open too soon. Some say the first names contain more rest than sound, that they are woven of pauses, and that those pauses become the quiet between a star's pulses, the hush that keeps its burning from screaming. The deep beneath answers with a glimmer you feel more than see, as if a small school of fish turned at once in unlit water. You remember how the waters rehearsed futures, counting rivers and tears and rains to come. The deep keeps the names cool. Names too early warmed might flare and vanish. Held in water, they ripen toward endurance, the way a seed swells in darkness before it meets air. Your breath slows to match that swelling, a tide that does not fuss at the shore. A dream of the city of God drifts in, Revelation's river bright as crystal, and yet you let even that dream rest. This is the portion before the page is inked, before trumpets carry their larger music. Your part is only to hear the unsaid, to honor it as one honors the last silence in a lullaby. The page at your heart trembles once, then settles, and you glimpse a phrase fading as it forms. A lamp prepares its wick. The phrase dissolves. You keep the warmth. Across the vault, a pattern sifts like flour through air. It is not a constellation, not yet, but the posture of one. 3 points nearly in line, a cluster nearby, a curve that offers a cradle. If you listened with your skin, you might guess at the name sealed in that configuration, something that carries steadiness and shepherding and homecoming. Names are not labels here, they are destinies carried quietly. Some say each star, once lit, sings its name to the others, so softly that only angels hear, and the song keeps them from colliding. Azazel's shadow rests at the edge, and you catch the faintest tilt of his head, as if even he is reading the sealed script of the sky. His longing is a kind of listening. It does not disturb the names, and the names do not recoil. They know themselves kept. You think of how even the excluded may stand in awe when the holy is near. Some say God stores such awe like a perfume in a sealed jar, and one day opens it in some hidden room where only consolation enters. The vault feels nearer to your brow. Perhaps you are rising, perhaps it is descending. Between you and the curve, a single syllable gathers, a hush shaped into a letter. It could be the first stroke of a name you will never hear finished. It could be the last petal ready to fall before a flower opens. You do not reach. Allowing becomes your offering. Names prefer consent to conquest. Isaiah's line returns. He calleth them all by names, and a companion verse from the Psalms answers in a whisper of memory. He telleth the number of the stars. He calleth them all by their names. The redundancy is comfort, not noise. To be numbered and named is to be counted and cherished. One is measure, the other is affection. In the dark, affection comes first. You look again at the center of the watcher's ring. For an instant the air there thickens like honey. If a name had weight, it would feel like that, a sweetness with gravity. The angel's lips do not part, yet the sweetness grows. Some say that when a name is finally spoken, the syllables are woven into the star's light so tightly that the light cannot forget them. Others say the name remains hidden inside the light, like a heartbeat, never exhausted, always new. The almost note in the air holds, bright as a hair strung between two eternities. Uriel's hands remain folded, but his attention glows like coal under ash. You know that when he opens the gate, the names will move from sealed to sung. For now, they are the kindness of secrecy, the generosity of privacy. You let your own name fall quiet inside you in solidarity, a candle cupped. You do not need to hear them to be healed by them. The namelessness softens your edges, turns you porous to peace. You feel hospitable to the unsaid, a host to pauses. In that hospitality, a small blessing opens over you, the kind that does not start. Lior demand, the kind that warms the brow and says only, rest, you rest. Above you, the unborn stars keep their names close. Below you, the deep keeps the names cool. Around you, the watchers keep the names safe. And at the threshold, Uriel keeps the time. Soon the angels will breathe, and the names will unfurl like silk released from a spool. Tonight you honor the unspoken and find yourself spoken to by silence. You feel it before you can name it, the faintest drift inside the stillness, like a drop of snow turning into a bead of water in your palm. It is not wind, not yet. It is the permission for things to move, the first yes whispered to the locked doors of waiting. The vault above does not change shape, and the deep below does not break its mirror, yet something passes between them, a slack lifted, a thread drawn, the hush beginning to lean forward. Your breath follows without effort, inhale, exhale, and between them a delicate slope appears, almost invisible, as if the air had agreed to tip by a single degree. You remember the almost note of the trumpet, how it trembled through you like a shy secret. That tremor returns now as measure. It does not grow louder, it becomes regular. A tiny cadence settles into the place where everything had been pure holding, and you realize you are listening to a clock that has never ticked before, learning how to tick without noise. The watchers do not turn or nod, but their shared attention tightens a filament between them. It glows, a hair-thin silver, establishing intervals where there had only been fullness. A scripture enters the room as softly as a moth. Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven, to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. The line does not announce calendars or crowd you with numbers. It simply opens a hand in front of you, palm upward, and in that palm you see a slow river, narrow as a ribbon, beginning to run. Not torrents, only a seep, a trickle, a lucid braid that knows the difference between before and after and loves both. Beneath your feet, the deep breathes a yes. The surface, which had been perfection without movement, accepts a soft, nearly imagined current. A single strand of water slides under another and does not tangle. Above, the vault feels nearer to the skin of your brow, not because distance has changed, but because order has arrived. Time is not a tyrant here. It is a shepherd's hand at the small of the world's back, guiding without shove. If you looked closely, you might see the names of unborn stars loosening by a petal, each syllable learning where it will open in the long meadow of night. Uriel's posture alters by the width of a sigh. His eyes, which had been closed in patient accounting, open with the unstartled awareness of one who has been counting not minutes but readiness. The rod or scroll you glimpsed before is again only potential in the folds of his robe, yet the way his fingers rest suggests a gate has been tested and found smooth on its hinges. Some say Uriel carries in his veins the measure of hours, and that when the first hour is poured, his pulse becomes the cup. The apocryphal voices drift in, jubilees, with its divisions and appointed times. Enoch with his courses of luminaries and the storehouses of wind. You feel those books like maps held over a lamp, tracings floating onto the blank air, delicate lines describing gates at the east and west where the host of heaven will one day rise and set. Here, before any rising or setting, the gates are intentions rather than doors. Still, the intention is tenderly exact. The first increments of before and after slip into place like beads clicking softly along a string. Your body answers this novice flow the way a shoreline answers a tide. Heartbeat matches the invisible cadence. Lungs become hours that keep to their appointed turn. Eyelids are evening and morning finding each other. Nothing rushes. The honey of waiting thins into tea. A breath moves through the circle of watchers as if one garment had been shaken by a hand you cannot see. The fabric settles smoother than before. Genesis remains near. It offers no new sentence, only deepens the one already open in your chest. For signs and for seasons. You notice how signs come first, seasons after. A sign is a kindness toward those who need to know how to walk. A season is the long kindness itself. You think of how a season is felt in the body. Winter in the knuckles, summer on the nape, spring in the tongue that tastes green in the air. The world to be is learning this grammar now, and time is the soft teacher sounding out the vowels. A single drop detaches from the river above the sky, too small to see until it glitters and disappears back into the current. The gesture is practice. Above your head, an invisible metronome begins to swing slow as a cradle. The deep below returns the movement with a shadow sway you feel through your soles. Between them, your spine discovers a new sweetness in alignment, as if the vertebrae had been little standing stones waiting for the pilgrim of breath to pass them in order. The page, Enoch's page, drifts up from near your heart and turns itself once, then settles. The turn is a minute bow to time's arrival. a way of saying that writing too loves intervals, letter to letter, space to space, line to line. You catch, just for an instant, a ghostly rubric in the page's blank, tiny strokes that say hour, without forming the word, measuring the distance between a candle's light and its smallest smoke. If a page could smile, it would smile like this, unconcerned with hurry, relieved to be shown the pace at which gentleness can endure. Azazel's shadow, at the perimeter, thins. Perhaps longing itself abides by rhythm once it hears rhythm speak. He does not step closer, he does not withdraw. His stillness now is no longer taut string, but a taut one, tuned to the pitch of the place. What had been nearly a snap becomes a note held carefully beneath the first mus-like. You think of Revelation's river, bright as crystal, proceeding from the throne. In that image is a motion without threat, a clarity that does not flinch. Time here will be like that, transparent, giving, a procession from kindness to kindness. Some say that before the fall of any leaf, the angels rehearse the leaf's turning for many ages, so that when it finally spins to earth, it will do so with courtesy. Perhaps that is what you feel now, the rehearsal that will make every small ending and beginning bearable, even beautiful. The almost note of the trumpet threads the air again, less a tremble than a line drawn with a single hair. Its steadiness comforts you the way a heartbeat comforts an ear against a chest. If this is the first metrical thing the world hears, then mercy has taught the lesson. In the far distance you sense gates, those intentions of east and west, acknowledging one another, though they remain closed. They do not call, they greet, as neighbours over a fence at dawn. You taste time on your tongue, the faint metallic of a key warmed in a hand, the sweetness of bread rising somewhere behind a door. The vault's smooth face seems to carry a sheen now, like breath fogging cool glass, and then clearing in an even rhythm. The deep's mirror releases and receives so gently that the surface never breaks. Evening and morning, Genesis will say of the first day, and suddenly the phrase is no longer a notation but a lullaby. Evening is here, within the darkness, curled like a cat. Morning is here, within the same darkness, opening like a small white flower. They do not compete, they trade places with courtesy. From the edge of the circle, a watcher who had tilted his head before tilts it again, a fraction more. If there is a smile among angels that does not bend the mouth, this is it. Attention, satisfied without consumption, another watcher. Opens his palm, a gesture not to receive but to match time's open hand. The circle's centre thickens with that honeyed gravity you have learned to love. Sweetness grows measurable without becoming heavy. You consider your own days, the ones you have walked and the ones you have not yet dared to imagine. They line up quietly behind you, and the flow that has begun here in the first night lets them rest in order instead of in a knot. You are not asked to solve them, you are invited to float. Some say time is a river that wears a crown of thorns. Others say it is a river crowned with lilies. Here, tonight, it wears soft grass and the shadow of wings. You lean, not forward, but into the cadence that has arrived, into the tiny slope between inhale and exhale, into the first kindness of before and after. The angels do not breathe yet, but the place has learned how breath will be welcomed. The names of the stars murmur within their seals, content to wait in a line that feels, at last, like music. If anyone asked how time began, you would point to this. Not a shout, not a crack, but the ease of honey slipping from a spoon, the lull between a mother's shushing and a child's sleep, the hush that learns to sway. Some say Uriel hears the exact instant a pause becomes a beat and carries that beat in his palm like a bird that trusts him. Perhaps he does. Perhaps time learned to flow because someone, somewhere in the invisible, loved patience enough to give it motion. The river of moments gathers the faintest width. The vault hums, the deep consents. And you, held between them, begin to float downstream at the speed of mercy. Between what is and what is almost, you notice a thinning, like frost on a pane where a fingertip has hovered but not touched. It is not a wall, not a door, it is a veil, a membrane so fine you cannot see it unless you stop even your inward motion and let it appear by contrast. On one side, a softness you have already learned to call time, honey thinned to tea, the cradle sway of before and after. On the other side, promise kept close, the unborn nodes of brightness holding their breath within their sealed names. The veil does not forbid, it protects. It is the quiet between syllables that lets the word remain gentle. Genesis leans close as a friend who knows you are almost asleep and does not wish to startle you. And God divided the light from the darkness. You feel the sentence rather than analyze it, the division not as a violence but as a blessing of borders. Here, the veil is that blessing before light arrives fully to be divided. When it comes, the veil will have already taught the art of distinction without rupture. The darkness will keep its dignity, the light will wear its brightness without boasting. The firmament curves above you, smooth as ever, yet now you sense where the veil runs along its inner face, an invisible seam like the line where dawn will one day lay its first pale hand. The deep below answers with its own seam, a whisper ridge you could mistake for memory. Between the two seams, the air carries a soft charge, as if dust were learning to become gold without changing its humility. You test the space with your breath, inhale, and the veil trembles, exhale, and it steadies, obedient, patient, precise. The watchers perceive it too. No one moves, yet attention narrows, threads pulled through the needle's eye. One by one, their inner lamps turn a fraction lower, as if the mere thought of brightness could be too loud for the veil's work. Uriel stands at the threshold with the same practiced stillness, but you notice a minute tilt of his wrist, palm slightly raised, not to halt, not to summon, simply to say, "Let the thinness thin in peace." If gates exist, their hinges are listening. From the apocryphal corridors, Enoch's voice returns, unhurried, pointing toward the chambers where light is stored, the courses of the luminaries and the gates of the winds. He does not press you toward those chambers, he only reminds you that such keepings exist. In certain tellings there are heavens layered like veils themselves, each holding degrees of brightness. Perhaps this is the first of them, or the last, or a veil that lies across all of them at once like linen laid lightly over a sleeping face. Some say the veil is Uriel's own mantle, thinned by ages of faithful watching until it learned to be boundary and blessing at once. You draw nearer, not by steps but by permission, and the veil's grain reveals itself. It is woven of pauses. Every thread is a rest, every crossing an interval. Touch is not allowed, not because the veil is stern, but because its strength is made of unbroken patience. If you were to handle it, you would disturb the very rest that gives it purpose, as if plucking a still pool for proof of depth and losing the reflection that told you the depth was there. A thought occurs without argument. The veil is also mercy for light. When the angels breathe, light will not be thrust naked into the world. It will pass through softness first, learning how to arrive without burning. On the far side, you sense the sealed names of stars, curled like embryos, pressed against the veil as children lean their foreheads to a door, listening for a mother's steps. The veil keeps them from waking each other too soon. You hear the silence of their sleeping, a silence speckled with tiny, contented beginnings. When the breath comes, and soon is a word that sits lightly in this room, the veil will bloom, not burst. Luminosity will sift through the threads the way morning sifts through lace. What is lit will announce itself without shouting. What remains promised will not feel rejected. It will wait as honored ground waits beneath snow. Some say the veil will always remain, even when all is bright, as the quiet within radiance, as the softness that keeps glory from turning hard. Perhaps that is why heaven feels like home to those who long for gentleness. You step back by not stepping at all, honoring the veil's work. The stillness regathers you. The deep returns to its mirror. The vault rests in its calm curve. The watchers keep their circle. Uriel keeps the hour. And at the very skin of the world's becoming, the veil keeps its patient, luminous hush. Between what is lit and what is promised, a sanctuary woven of pauses, ready for breath. Sweetness grows measurable without becoming heavy. You consider your own days, the ones you have walked and the ones you have not yet dared to imagine. They line up quietly behind you, and the flow that has begun here in the first night lets them rest in order instead of in a knot. You are not asked to solve them, you are invited to float. Some say time is a river that wears a crown of thorns. Others say it is a river crowned with lilies. Here, tonight, it wears soft grass and the shadow of wings. You lean, not forward, but into the cadence that has arrived, into the tiny slope between inhale and exhale, into the first kindness of before and after. The angels do not breathe yet, but the place has learned how breath will be welcomed. The names of the stars murmur within their seals, content to wait in a line that feels, at last, like music. If anyone asked how time began, you would point to this. Not a shout, not a crack, but the ease of honey slipping from a spoon, the lull between a mother's shushing and a child's sleep, the hush that learns to sway. Some say Uriel hears the exact instant a pause becomes a beat and carries that beat in his palm like a bird that trusts him. Perhaps he does. Perhaps time learned to flow because someone, somewhere in the invisible, loved patience enough to give it motion. The river of moments gathers the faintest width. The vault hums, the deep consents. And you, held between them, begin to float downstream at the speed of mercy. It begins with a drawing in, not yours, theirs, the angels. You do not see lungs expand, nor chests lift. You feel it, the way you feel a room deepen when many people hold breath together. The change is delicate but complete. Every fold of air in the vault, every still drop in the deep, every thread in the veil seems to tighten, not in fear, but in readiness. The almost note of the trumpet, which has lingered like a hairline of light, bends subtly toward tone. The waiting has found its hinge, and now it leans. Your own breathing falls into their rhythm before you think to match it. Inhale, long and slow, as if you could drink patience from the space around you. Hold, not tensely but in a way that lets your bones listen. Somewhere beyond sight, a pulse moves through the watcher's circle like wind passing invisibly through standing reeds. The deep accepts it. The vault answers with an inaudible hum. Genesis rises again in your chest. And God said, "Let there be light." But the sentence is not finished here. You are inside the breath before the word, the gathering of the syllables that will soon cross the veil. You realize the phrase is not an order to be shouted. It will be a gift to be given on the tide of this inhale. The giving is more than half complete already. The watcher's eyes are fixed on the center. None move, yet you see tiny changes. A palm loosens, a shoulder angles toward the unseen horizon. A gaze sharpens its stillness. Each is an echo of the breath being drawn in. Uriel, at the threshold, is motionless but more present than ever, like a still gate under a hand resting on its latch. You feel that he is listening for the moment when the breath crests, no earlier, no later, before the first syllable of creation's voice. From the apocrypha, you recall Enoch's testimony of being shown the winds in their chambers, the paths of the luminaries. You had imagined Ho's storehouses as rooms with closed doors, but here you understand the first storehouse is a chest, angelic, divine, filling with breath that is not to sustain life but to birth it. You imagine Gabriel among them, his wings curving inward to cradle this first wind, his face as serene as a mountain lake. The veil between brightness quivers now, though its threads hold. You can almost hear the unborn stars pressing closer, their sealed names trembling like lips about to speak for the first time. The deep responds with a minute swell, not breaking its mirror, but enough to catch the shape of what is being gathered above. The river over the sky brightens briefly in its hidden bed, the seeds of constellations shifting within its silver stream. Azazel's shadow, at the edge, shifts once, as if pulled forward by a string no one else can see. He does not step closer. He knows the breath is not his to spend, but longing has weight, and you can feel his in the way the air tightens around him. Some say even those bound at the edges of holiness are moved by its arrival, that longing itself can resonate with creation's first wind. Watching him, you suspect this is true. The inhale deepens, though no sound accompanies it. The effect is everywhere at once. The vault's curve grows almost imperceptibly larger. The deep surface stretches tighter. The circle of watchers seems more perfectly aligned. You feel the pressure as a warmth against your skin, like the air before a summer rain. The page of Enoch stirs in the space beside you, its blank face angled upward, as though it, too, will be inscribed in the moment the breath is released. A scripture from Job drifts through. By the breath of God, frost is given, and the broad waters are straightened. Here, frost has not yet been given, the waters have not yet moved, but the breath is here, coiled, luminous, infinite, and you are within the held pause that will decide the course of rivers, the tilt of stars, the first gold thread of day. The inhalation feels like an embrace around the whole of you, not pressing, but gathering you into itself. Your ribs widen, your spine lengthens as if invited to stand in a procession you didn't know you'd been chosen for. The angels do not look at you, but you are part of their breath all the same. It occurs to you that perhaps all creation is. Some say this breath carries not just light but memory, the knowledge of every waiting it has ever seen, the seed in darkness, the child unborn, the prayer unanswered but held close. If so, then you are breathing with all of them now, lending your lungs to a chorus of stillness. You think of the psalmist's line, "By the word of the Lord were the heavens made, and all the host of them by the breath of his mouth." You feel the truth of it in your very marrow. The veil's trembling steadies, as if it too has drawn its part of the inhale and now holds. The deep falls silent under the weight of its own reflection. The trumpet's thread of tone glows faintly, ready to break into song. The watchers hold their circle with the gravity of planets in orbit, unshakable yet entirely at ease. Uriel's fingers shift, barely, but enough to tell you he has found the crest. His eyes remain fixed on the horizon of nothing, but in that gaze is a readiness that will not need to look again to know the moment. Soon the gates will open. Soon the breath will leave the lungs of angels and step across the veil like dawn across the first hill. For now, the inhale remains. It is a single note stretched into E. Eternity, an embrace that will end only to give way to light. You stand in it, gathered, held, part of a beginning that has not yet spoken its first word. The crest has been reached. The inhale that has stretched across eternity now pauses, perfectly balanced at the edge of release. The watchers do not move, yet the air inside their circle feels charged, as though every particle has been kissed with a promise it will never forget. You stand in that charge, your body remembering every heartbeat of stillness that has led here. The veil trembles, the deep listens, the vault curves overhead with the gentle weight of a hand about to lift. Then it happens, not as a blast, not as a rush, but as the slowest, most deliberate exhale the universe has ever known. You feel it before you hear it, as warmth on your face, as a pressure in your chest that is not yours but moves through you. It carries no sharpness, no tearing force. The breath passes like dawn entering a sleeping room, finding the cheek, the brow, the closed eyes, and touching them without waking too fast. The veil drinks it in first. Its threads, woven of pauses, open like the pores of skin in sunlight. The exhale sifts through, transformed into something softer still, until even the sealed names of the unborn stars lean forward to meet it. They do not burst, they unfurl. One by one they let go of the wax seal of their silence, their first syllables spilling into the breath like petals into a stream. The firmament changes without sound. The glassy arc that held the seeds begins to glow from within, as if lit by embers beneath ice. The river above the sky gleams, its current no longer hidden, each starseed catching the breath like a sail. They lift into their appointed places, not thrown but placed, the way a jeweler sets stones with fingertips trained never to bruise. Genesis steps forward in full voice now. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. You do not hear the words with ears, they are in the breath itself, filling every space you have known. In this long waiting, light happens gently but completely. The darkness does not flee, it bows. The light does not conquer, it embraces. For the first time, the veil is not dividing promise from brightness. Both pass through it, each keeping its dignity. The deep beneath reflects the change instantly. Its mirror shimmers, breaking its perfect stillness into ripples that gleam with the light above. It is not disruption, but joy, the kind of movement water makes when touched by a hand it trusts. You watch as the deep cradles the new constellations in its reflection, doubling the stars so that heaven and earth seem to share them equally. The page of Enoch tilts in the glow, and for the first time marks appear, lines of light bending into script. They are not in any language you have read, but you understand them as you understand the warmth of a fire on cold skin, the record of arrival, the testimony of gentleness in creation's first act. The letters are less written than breathed into being, each one a small constellation in itself. From the edge, Azazel's shadow is no longer so sharp. The light touches him too, not as possession, but as gift. He does not move toward it, but neither does he turn away. His face is unreadable, yet in the glow you catch the glint of a watcher's gaze, not jealous, not bitter, but simply seeing. Perhaps this is what longing becomes when it has no choice but to receive. The watchers remain in their places, but their stillness now carries the quiet satisfaction of a vow kept. They have guarded the moment, and the moment has bloomed. Uriel lowers his hands, not in dismissal, but in the blessing of completion. His eyes are steady on the newborn lights, as if committing each placement to a memory that will never fade. Some say he carries the map of the heavens in his very being, and that tonight that map has received its first living ink. Above, the stars open fully. They are not identical in their brightness. Some glow like coals banked for the night, others like lanterns lifted high, but all shine with the softness of something that knows it has been wanted. They hum, if humming is the word, a tone that is neither low nor high, but somehow both, wrapping the vault in a music without measure. It is the sound of light remembering the breath that gave it life. The deep answers in kind, sending faint waves outward, as though to rock the stars in their reflection. You look into that water and see yourself not as you are now, but as a point of light, small and steady, part of the same sky that has just been born. There is no hierarchy here, only the quiet belonging of all things touched by breath. Some say that first exhale will never fully end, that even now, every wind, every whisper, every sigh in the world is a remnant of it. Others say it was one long breath that set all in motion and then rested. Standing here, you suspect both are true. The breath was complete, and yet it continues in everything that moves with gentleness. The veil, though no longer the sole keeper of brightness, remains. Now it serves not as separation but as a quiet filter, keeping the stars' light tender, letting the darkness rest without being pierced too harshly. You feel its texture as you did before, woven of pauses, but now it carries a faint warmth, like cloth that has been close to skin. You close your eyes and let the newborn light seep through your lids, a slow sunrise behind them. In the darkness there you can still see the after-image of the stars as they were, seeds in a silver river, names sealed in softness. You realize that to remember their waiting is to keep part of the light's gentleness alive. Some say that's why the heavens look the way they do, that the patience of the stars before they burned is still visible in the way they burn now. When you open your eyes again, the breath is still moving, not outward, not away, but through the vault, through the deep, through the circle, through you, and you understand. This was never a moment that belonged only to the angels. This breath is in you now, and you will carry it, slow and steady wherever you go. The sky is alive now, yet even in its awakening there is a restraint, a memory of the hush that shaped it. The newborn stars glimmer with a softness no later night will fully recapture, an innocence that comes only once, in the very hour of first breath. They shine as if they remember what it was to be folded, unnamed, cradled in silver current, and kept cool in the deep. And though the light has come, the silence has not left. It lingers beneath the glow like a second layer of sky. The watchers hold their circle as they have since before the beginning, but there is something different now, a light in their stillness, a fulfillment that is not pride but peace. Their vigil has reached its first completion, yet they do not disperse. Some say their task is endless, to keep the memory of the waiting as carefully as they keep the light itself. Around the circle the air hums with a tone that has no beginning and no end, a chord sustained not by music but by devotion. Uriel stands at the threshold, his gaze moving slowly across the vault. It is not the glance of one checking his work. It is the loving attention of a shepherd counting his flock, not out of doubt, but out of care. His robe, still the colour of deep waters, seems now to carry a faint scattering of stars across its folds, as though the light has written on him too. He breathes once, and the vault responds with a shimmer so slight you could almost mistake it for your own heartbeat. The veil remains, no longer a strict divider but a keeper of balance. It lets the new brightness pass, softened, into the world's first darkness, which receives it without fear. In that exchange you see a truth. Even in the presence of light, darkness still has a place. Some say the veil will always stand between, not to separate, but to remind the two of their shared origin in the same breath. The deep below mirrors it all. Every star, every watcher, every curve of the dome. The water's surface sways gently now, a rhythm so measured it feels like the rocking of a cradle. You think of how one day other cradles will be made, wooden, woven, carved, yet all will carry something of this same motion, a promise to guard what is still becoming. From the edge, Azazel watches. The light touches him as it has before, not claimed, not withheld, simply present. His eyes reflect two things at once, the glow of the stars and the shadow of the longing that remains his own. You wonder if, somewhere in that shadow, there is gratitude for having seen this at all. Some say even the banished are blessed when they witness beauty in its first hour, and that such visions are seeds planted deep, to be reckoned with in the fullness of time. Enoch's page floats nearby, no longer blank. Its surface now bears a single line, written in letters made of light so fine you can barely hold them in your focus. The sky remembers the silence. The letters fade even as you read them, as if to say the record is kept elsewhere, in a place no hand can smudge. The page drifts away, perhaps to return when the story needs it again. The trumpet's note is gone, or perhaps it has become everything you now hear. The rustle of light across the veil, the hum in the watcher's circle, the soft stirring in the deep. All of it carries the same breath that moved through the angels. You realize it is not lost to the moment. It will go on breathing in the folds of wind, in the pull of tides, in the rise and fall of every chest that draws air. You look up, and the vault seems impossibly vast, yet intimate enough to belong to you. The constellations have begun to take their shapes, some familiar to your knowing, others strangers whose stories have not yet been told. They are not hurried to be named. Tonight they are content to exist, to be the quiet companions of this new creation. Some say the first night was longer than any that followed, as if the world needed time to absorb the wonder without spilling it. Perhaps this is why you feel no press to leave, no impulse to ask what comes next. The scene is complete in its incompletion. Light and darkness are at peace. Breath has found its way into every corner. You are part of it, not as guest or intruder, but as something made to be here. The watcher's eyes lift slightly as though seeing beyond what you see. Uriel lowers his head in a gesture that feels like the closing of a chapter. The deep's mirror dims, just enough to soften the brilliance of its reflection. The veil breathes once, as though settling a cloak over sleeping shoulders. And you, your own breathing slow and even, are filled with the sense that nothing has been hurried, nothing withheld. You think of all the beginnings that will follow this one, and how each will carry some echo of this night. The stars will shine over gardens and deserts, over waters divided and waters joined, over tents and towers, over exile and homecoming. They will burn over the birth of children and the burial of kings, and in all their watching, they will remember the breath that first woke them, and the silence that kept them safe until the moment was right. You lift your eyes one last time to the newborn sky. It meets you with a gaze of its own, steady, gentle, endless. You feel the breath move through you once more, as if to say, you too are part of this light and part of its silence. And in that knowing, you rest. The stars above you soften now, dimming not from weariness, but in kindness to your closing eyes. Their glow loosens like petals folding back into the bud, returning to the memory of waiting they knew before the breath. The deep beneath quiets to stillness, its cradle rocks slowing until the surface is smooth as glass. The veil holds its gentle place between brightness and promise, a final blessing on the first night. Your breathing falls into the same rhythm as the watchers, long, patient inhales, tender exhales, until you are certain you could stay here forever. The air is cool, scented with the faint sweetness of cedar and water, carrying no urgency, only rest. Somewhere at the edge, Azazel's shadow dissolves into the broader darkness, longing and peace entwined in a way only he and the night understand. In the distance, Uriel's gaze lingers on the sky, then lowers, satisfied. The circle of watchers remains unbroken, their devotion a quiet flame that needs no tending. Above, the stars hum their first song in tones too soft for waking ears, but clear enough for the soul to hear. It is a lullaby that carries no words, only the assurance that what was begun in gentleness will always return to gentleness. The veil breathes once more, and the light behind it leans in like a friend's hand on your shoulder. You feel yourself drifting, drawn deeper into the sanctuary you have been walking through. The sky remembers the silence. The silence remembers you. The stars have dimmed, but something holy lingers,